All right, we'd like to call to order the Board and Commission Candidate Review Committee meeting for Monday, October 11th, 2021. The time is 3:03 p.m. And at this time, we'll do a roll call. Our interim city clerk, Josh Stecker.
I'm here.
City Council Member Jenny Wook.
Here.
City Council Member Robin Denson.
Here.
And Spencer Upshall, City Council, as well as here. And we've also got Mayor Kit Cooney, who's on the phone right now, but we'll acknowledge that he's here, and we're waiting for Community Development Director Katrina Knudsen to join us. So at this time, I would like to seek approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for September 13th, 2021?
So I just have one thing I'd like to say about the minutes.
Sure.
I think they're fine, except I thought that we also mentioned that there was something that needed to be done on all of the volunteer commissions with regards to our volunteers who may not be following city code or may be involved in a code violation. Am I remembering that incorrectly? Does anybody remember that conversation?
I remember the conversation. I don't remember the details.
So I was really hoping Katrina actually would be here. Otherwise, I think it's fine. Otherwise, I think that Robin, do you remember that conversation at all?
Well, I remember you mentioning it at least, and I can't remember if we decided that it was going to be in anything or if you just made a comment that people that had violated the code shouldn't be on these committees, something like that.
All right, then I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
And do we have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. And yeah, I think maybe Katrina had said they wanted to do more investigation and maybe give it the judicial inspection that it needed before we call people out.
Well, yeah, I think that I don't think we should take people off boards if they haven't been, like, if it hasn't been adjudicated or whatever. We're just suspecting and investigating. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Right. We do have somebody on our LTAC committee, I guess, that she mentioned was in code violation. So I don't know if that's been resolved or if that's still going on.
Which one's that? I don't want
Arabella's Landing, John
I
Moyes.
think John Moist. Oh, right. And then, it gets more complicated. Ginny Wellman is on there, and I don't think, she's not associated with the film festival anymore either. So,
but I don't think that's a code violation. So I'm concerned about code violations. Well, volunteers being on commissions who are in code violation. We have another.
That's still a code violation.
Okay. So then I think maybe, I don't know how we go about this, and I believe we have someone else on another board who is not allowing inspections of their building.
Jenny, you get all the dirt. I haven't heard about this one.
Oh, people.
Never a slow day at City Hall.
So I guess the question is, Mr. Mayor, is there a process that the city goes through to review these allegations? And is there a judicial decision that gets rendered? Who makes that decision? Is it? That would
be you guys, because in order to remove someone from a committee, it has to be a council action. And in order for a council action, probably need a recommendation from this board, from this committee.
Okay,
so giving you some background. These are low-lying fruits that haven't been worth when there's bigger violations. So for instance, the thing with the person on the Marlene, let's just say, that's not proven yet, and so it's probably not worth a legal fight to figure. We've been trying to work with Katrina and the code violation to figure that out, and so it's not a proven, clear, direct, proven violation yet. So Ginny, if we remove Ginny Wellman, she could say, well, I'm going to be a volunteer for the film festival. And so don't remove me because I will get you a piece of paper that says I'm a volunteer now. So then you've got John Moyes that Stan Stearns has had a lot of past history with the city of suing each other back and forth, and not a very good relationship. It's a beautiful 2 blocks of city, and they are paying their LTAC tax, and they have been doing it for many years. So it was just brought to our attention. So it is ongoing overnight stay that has been allowed, or was allowed, and they are paying their wages, their tax. Whereas we just had someone right before we passed the emergency, someone came in and said, "Oh, I have five places, and I haven't told you about them, and some of them are on the water, and they're not even legal there, and others they're turned in." So the point is, you can't start going after everyone. And so we would rather work on the person that's building concrete buildings that are not with no permit, and pushing land over without permits. We can't fight them all. So we've chosen, unfortunately, to pick the ones that are doing the most damage when you can't do them all.
So we're just talking about volunteers on commissions making decisions that are not following our city code.
Well, 2 of those.
Are we just going to allow that?
Well, first thing, like I mentioned, 2 out of those 3 will probably take legal action, because they will involve attorney, and that's going to get costly. And
so
it's also back to staff time. There's only so many hours in the day for all of us to deal with all this. I've been trying to get this other contractor that's building buildings without a permit for 1.5 years, and I don't. And so anyway, give me 5 more hours in a day. Give me another attorney.
I don't know how difficult this is to put in our ordinance that volunteers have to be in good standing with the city.
Right. So let's say the person says, "Prove that I've broken the law," and then I'll fight you in court. It's not that simple, Jenny. That's what. Well,
I do think. I mean, by proving it, and I don't know the whole code enforcement process, but at some point, isn't there a letter? Isn't there a determination that this person is in violation? I know sometimes, like the couple of people we're talking about, sounds like it hasn't gotten to that point. So I don't think we should do anything. But if somebody does receive a letter that they're in violation, I think that's what Jenny's talking about.
May I interject?
Please do.
As citizens of the United States, we're all afforded due process rights. And so our code does have due process within it. So if we issue a notice of violation, for instance, then the person would have the right to appeal that decision to the hearing examiner. And after the hearing examiners can either confer with staff on the notice of violation, or can rule against staff. And in either of those actions, the further process from that would be, if the hearing examiner rules against the city, we would have the option to take that to Superior Court. If the hearing examiner rules with us, then the potential code violator could take that to Superior Court. I think what Councilmember Luke, if what you were saying is if they're known to be violating the code, I think that it could be written in that if it has been determined through the finalization of that code enforcement process or something like that, it can't just be, we believe they are, it has to have gone through the due process.
Right. And the due process would be, what would that be? What would that look like, Katrina?
It would be a final decision and order on the code enforcement. So, it could go up to Pierce County Superior Court. That usually doesn't happen, but
I guess the point is that those are pretty big things when we've got buildings being built and we haven't even got to that level with those people yet. So
I don't think that we should have code violators being volunteers on any of our commissions. They're not, I mean, I don't think that's appropriate in our city.
I think if people are going to fight it, they're probably going to fight it because they want to continue doing what they're doing. Not, I really don't know that they care that much about fighting it to stay on one of our committees. I don't know that they're going to spend money on that. So I feel like if they're going to fight it, they're going to fight it either way if we're moving forward with that process. And I don't know that we can pick and choose. I understand and agree with you that there's worse.
It's not pick and choosing though, just so you know. It's time. You know, there's only so many hours in the day. It's a matter of time.
So, but maybe we should put in our ordinance. If we put something in the ordinance, then maybe people would think twice about.
That's funny.
I think maybe it could be something of, you know, all members must be in good standing with Big Harbor Municipal Code. I think it could be as simple as that. And then we don't have to specify which point in the process it is, but that they must be in good standing with all aspects of the municipal code.
I like that.
I like that.
Well, but how do you determine what's good standing? I mean, what is the definition of that? Because someone could say, okay, well, you're not in good standing. Well, you know, I can get 50 people to go out and say I am. So who judiciates that?
If they
I got a whole bunch of things I got to say about all this.
It would be like if they did a code violation. That's not in good standing.
Right, but okay, so we've got people that we are accusing of being in violation of the code. We have not proven that. I don't know. This is a whole mess. I'll be honest. And okay, so one other question: if someone is engaged in a lawsuit with the city, isn't that a reason that they would have to leave the board? Isn't there some kind of conflict of interest there?
Engaged in what?
If they're engaged in a lawsuit, let's say we accuse someone of being in a violation, we kick them off a board, they decide to sue us, wouldn't that be enough reason to have them have to leave the board because there would be a conflict of interest?
That's why you go to a lawsuit, to prove if someone's who the court sides with is right. So, I mean, I could sue you for anything, but maybe you didn't do it. So I think you'd have to wait for the outcome of that case.
I don't think people are going to volunteer at this for a committee. You're not going to sue the city, are they?
Well, these were brought up after they were already on. So it's not a matter of volunteering after the fact. Both these people were on, and then something else occurred later on.
So Black's Law Dictionary defines good standing as entity status in terms of being up to date for anything due, like reports or other criteria, or as a member of an organization.
So that wouldn't help us, right?
I think it would, but if we have a question about that, Daniel will be back next week and we could ask him.
Why don't we ask him?
Okay, yeah, but it wouldn't, if you're in violation of a code, wouldn't you be due for, I mean, the word due, I think is D-U-E, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm, you know, that word translates to financials most of the time, but I think it could also apply to, you know, not having your, you know, not being up to code or not being up to standards. I think you have to be, I guess I'm trying to fit a square peg into a circle here, but.
I think it would fit. I think it would fit, but I think if there's question, then we could ask Daniel. But I would just like to point out for the committee that anyone could file code enforcement against any of us at any time.
Right.
And that we're innocent until we're proven guilty. And so I just would like to, you know, that's how we operate in the code enforcement world.
And that's good, but what I don't like is the notion that you know, we can't do things because we're threatened by people who are going to sue us. I think we should have all of our committees looking clean. And
I agree, but and I guess clarity for Daniel, it's a lot of these cases are not so cut and dry.
Right.
You know, it's not, just like several of these are not, so they're not crystal clear as to of a violation. They're so
even when a person's under investigation, they can remain on a board.
I would think so until they're found to be in code violation or in something else, another term. But yeah, you just don't ask people to leave because they're under investigation. That doesn't seem fair.
No.
Okay, the second edition of Black's Law, which is the most up to date, is good standing means in compliance, not subject to penalties or failure to fulfill all requirements.
I like that one.
Yeah. Okay. So that's clear.
Yeah.
And I should also recognize the Community Development Director, Katrina Knudsen, has joined us.
Thank you.
I happen to like that terminology, good standing, as you created it.
And code compliance, I think you even said too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to email the definition to the committee and the mayor right now.
Yeah, not subject to penalties, because we wouldn't be penalizing somebody if it had not gone completely through the process and was determined that they were out of compliance with something.
Right.
So one thing that our definition on so right now we could have someone sit on the design review board that lives in Tacoma. Is that correct?
Right.
So today we can, but we're looking at that. We're changing that ordinance today. We're looking at the change today.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I have a little problem with let's say, what is that? Is that a 3-year term?
I believe 3 or 4.
Right.
3.
I do have a little bit of a problem with, let's say someone's been on 1 year and we change that and we wait until their term is up. That's a long time. And I understand it's hard to kick people off, but maybe you say, okay, after, if maybe we say after, if any bylaws or any of our rules change that make it so that you cannot sit on the committee, after 6 months, you have to resign. You know, that's kind of being fair. I mean, right away is kind of abrupt, but let's just say someone's on there for 6 months or 3 months or a year, and they got 2 or 3 more years left. And to me, that's a big deal for someone to be on our design review board. To me, is if someone's, nothing against Tacoma, but if they're living over there and we want people kind of over here, waiting 2 or 3 years for them to be done with their term, I don't think that's right. I think we should say, okay, across the board for any of these committees, if we change our rules after 6 months, you will have to accept that and you will have to resign. And then we get the person that we established the whole rules, change the rules to begin with on the committee. And I'm just devil's advocate. That's what I think we should do, but I'm just giving you my 2 cents. What does this team think about, like 6 months and then it gives us the time to get the other person on?
I can see what you're saying, because we want people that are invested in the community. The one question I have is, what if somebody moves to Tacoma, for example, but they still have an investment in our community? They still have a business here, so maybe even a business downtown, so they still really care about the character and look of the community. Does that make a difference? They're not living here, but they're still invested.
Or personally, if they have a business, I think that makes a big difference.
I do too.
I don't think it makes a difference if they're on the design review board, because when you live in an urban city and you're used to seeing a lot of traffic and you're used to seeing high density, that becomes normal to you. It becomes every day to you. And I think that it does impact, I think it does make a difference when you're looking at another city where you're supposed to be holding to the codes of that city. You know, you're living in one city with different codes and that becomes normal to you. And then you're going over here and you're making decisions about code in another city and that is not normal to you anymore. I think it does make a difference on the design review board.
Well, just one example. I lived in Tacoma for 10 years and I worked 70 hours a week in Gig Harbor. So I had my store almost 30 years and I was here 2 times more than being at home on a weekly basis. So a
You
lot
were
of
not
people,
making decisions about how the city looked.
actually, I was pretty involved with the city. Not on the board though. But I was passionate about the city every day in my store.
So, okay. So anyway, Katrina, you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Spencer, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so, well, what I was thinking about what you said, Mr. Mayor, number one, I don't think we should have people who live outside of the city or the urban growth area be on our boards. But with that being said, let's say you're a person who's on a board now, and we're in extraordinary times. Maybe, you know, you might have been a renter, you might have lost your home, and or you might be facing some kind of difficulty right now, and you had to move to Tacoma just to find affordable rent or something. But you have every intent to either try to get back into Gig Harbor, something like that. So I would be okay with the 2 to 3 years at this stage right here. You know, maybe after COVID and everything is over, these housing moratoriums and things are coming or have been solved, and all that issues have been resolved. You know, we can maybe bake that back into a 6-month notice. But I think people are under tough times right now, and I just don't. You know, I don't want to be. It seems a little rough. I think the 2 to 3 years is okay. That's a quick period of time, and we can maybe revisit it later.
I'm supportive of letting people finish out their term.
Yeah.
Me too. And one thing I'll say, because I do think this is a valid point that the mayor brought up, I just don't like changing the rules for people in the middle of the game. What we could look at doing is in the actual code, we could say, you know, after whenever we make this decision, then folks will know, you know, while you're serving, if you should move, then your term ends 6 months after. I think that's fair because they know that going in.
And I think that's fair.
That's good.
Yeah.
So then going forward, once they sign up, then you have that.
All new members, yeah.
Okay.
Or renewing term, if they're renewing their term, then they're under those new rules.
Right.
I think that's fair.
All right. You like that too, Spencer?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. And that kind of helps that point you said that hopefully most crises are in 3 years. So it gives that time.
True.
Oh.
Except for COVID. Who knows what's going to end?
We're getting there.
Not funny, but.
So then the other thing that we were doing on this ordinance is to limiting the number of architects.
I had one suggestion for consideration for this, because my concern, and maybe Katrina can tell me if this is not a concern for her, is all of the members under our code, under subsection B of the qualifications, it says members shall be able to read and interpret, they should be able to demonstrate the ability to read and interpret site plans, elevation drawings, landscape plans, architectural details, and other design details and specifications. So all of these folks are supposed to be able to demonstrate that they can read plans, which I couldn't, I'm sure. So I'm wondering if, I have a couple questions. Subsection 2, where it says a city resident has interest and knowledge of urban design. When we talked about this before, I was like, it's just somebody who's interested. Those people still need to be able to demonstrate that they can read plans. Isn't that correct, Katrina? I mean, I don't know that we actually test anybody on this.
Right.
We don't test people on it, although it is highly helpful,
right,
if they can, because when items go to the design review board, there are some, most of the times, conceptual drawings. However, looking at the plans themselves is really important for materials and how things fit together and scale. I do think that is if not a requirement, pretty darn close to it, in my opinion.
Well, it's a requirement that they're supposed to be able to right now, whether we enforce that or not. So I understand where Councilmember Wook is coming from when she's questioning how many architects, absolutely. But I also worry that Ms. Knutson's not going to have the folks that she needs on the board that are kind of the experts in reading things. So I'm wondering if there's a happy median here where we say something like no more than one active architect at a time. So could we have a retired architect that maybe doesn't have an interest in what's going on? They don't have a project under consideration, but they still have that expertise that the DRB needs. I don't know if that's helpful or not. And Councilmember Luke, I'd love your thoughts on that, because I just thought of it as I was reading this here, because I'm worried that
how does an architect retire? How does that happen? You know, people coming to the DRBs are basically looking for ways around our code. So hopefully we can get our code up to beef up our code in the future, so we don't have as many people coming to design review board. But I don't know how an architect retires. I don't know how that happens. It's like an artist. How does an artist retire?
How do we determine if they're active or not?
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I get what your point is, but I'm sure that they must be connected somehow with people building houses. People come to them and ask their opinion, or I don't know. I'm not really feeling that that's helpful to have a retired architect on there. I don't know.
Well, Ms. Knutson, are you worried if we keep to just one architect? Are you concerned at all that you're not going to have the folks on the board that are going to be knowledgeable enough to help you make those decisions? Or I guess they're making the decisions.
I guess a question that I have before I answer that is, so under that section B1, it says a licensed architect or professional building designer. Are we saying that both of those are the same and that we could only have one person that is an architect and a designer? So we couldn't have a designer and an architect?
That's how I read it. Just one of that whole
Well, see, now I was reading you could have a licensed architect and you could have a building designer, but that's not a licensed architect. But you could have only one licensed architect. But if there was, how can you be a licensed architect without, how can you be a professional builder designer without being a licensed architect?
You can. We had, and there is a big difference. So usually architects get 10% of what the home's worth when it's a really good thing. So I had a designer build our house or design it. And he actually, his parents lived on Snug Harbor where those little bears are. And I saw a house that I thought was really cute. I went to the house and it was actually his parents and he designed it. So he was a fraction of the price and he was very different than your average architect, I think. But he was a designer. He didn't have the credentials to be an architect. So there is a big difference.
And there is under subsection 4, it says professional designer. And so I was questioning that too. That I thought, are we talking about interior designers? Like what's the difference? He designed a whole home, brand new plans with the glue lamps and everything. And I didn't need anyone else. So it's kind of like, he just didn't have the diploma to say it, but he still had probably most of the qualifications. Kind of like the nurse and the doctor. The nurse knows everything. The doctor just is the one that writes it.
Yeah, it's a little bit less technical of a less credentialing required, but you know, the designer can design things, then it's up to the architect to make sure that it can withstand load and earthquake and all of those things.
Well, the way I read this, and I would also like to make a correction. It says members shall be selected by the council from at least 4 of the following categories, and we have 6 categories. So that needs to be corrected. But the way I read this is the whole board could be licensed architects or professional building designers. It doesn't put a requirement on how many can't be. It says at least 1 member shall be selected. So with that language right there, I mean, every one of them could be a licensed architect, professional builder. The only limitations are placed on the city residents who have interest in knowledge and a member from the Gig Harbor Planning Commission. But all these people could be one of those folks.
So I don't think so, because what we're doing in the underline said, and no more than one member shall be selected from this category. And that's category number 1.
Well, maybe
So
what we could do is scratch professional building designer from 1, and then on 4, add professional building designer. It says professional designer now, so we could just add the word building, and that way we could have one of those as well.
That's fine with me. Katrina, how do you feel about that?
I actually have never, until we were in this meeting, realized what Councilmember Denson noticed about designer being in both. So I think that that would be a nice way to clean this up.
Okay. Urban design.
Well, that's why I was wondering, maybe in 4, if professional designer was supposed to be like more of an interior designer. We don't really need an interior designer on this, do we? So yeah, let's just put building in there, and then we know we've got somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times the designers are the ones that really are helpful in the discussion about how things fit together, and being able to take the language in the design manual about certain aspects and seeing how, you know, the zone transition will meet, or, you know, how different buildings will interact with each other. They're really good at seeing those things, whereas others on the board may not have that expertise, but designers are kind of trained for that.
That's good. And do you feel that you have enough members from what the changes are here in order to have a effective commission?
I think so. I do have the concern that Councilmember Denson brought up about, I'm not saying they're going to be lay people, but, you know, what I see from this committee is the desire to have more of a Gig Harbor residents feel, and maybe do have the layperson's perspective of how this is going to fit in. And so I see that as being part of the direction. We may just have to, on the staff level, maybe provide some training in the future once the board, you know, once these regulations start to get new members on that may or may not be proficient at reading plans, we may need to provide some of that training. But with this lead time, I think we can accommodate that, noting that it won't be for at least 2 years probably.
Great. So when I was doing the research, I noticed a lot of cities have just regular citizens on their design review board, and that was my thought, is let's just not have all architects on there.
And we did just send training to the DRB, so it's now get my wheels turning here, but there was some state training that was free for how to interpret and read plans. So if that's something that the state is going to offer for free, you know, on an ongoing basis, we can put that in our arsenal to give new members as well.
Yeah, great idea.
So what happens now? Does this come before council?
Yeah, I can get this prepared and we can have it before council at the October 25th meeting.
Okay. And you're going to move that one professional building designer, take it out of 1 and put it into 4.
Yeah. The clarification, let's see, we'll need clarification for how to remove people if they're not eligible any longer.
Well, I thought we wanted them to serve out their term. That's down here somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, but it sounded like you wanted a provision where if someone in the future became ineligible, they would be removed.
I think it could be, Josh, that if any member that's appointed to this committee after the date of the enactment would be subject to the 6-month provision.
And if I could make a recommendation that might make a little more sense, is that might be something we might want to include in council rules rather than this ordinance, and make it more broad to cover all of the committees. Because it sounds like that's your intent, is that, and it kind of rolls in with what we were talking about with LTAC, where if you have people that are in violation, that there should be a an escape clause in there, and that might make more sense to just put it into council rules so it applies universally.
When you say universally, you mean for all the commissions?
For all the boards, yes.
Right.
So for any board, if someone becomes ineligible, then council can remove them, or for any board, if someone is in code violation based on whatever criteria you want to use, you could remove them.
Right. But I don't feel if council already puts it in the rules going forward, they don't have to remove them. They've already made that rule. It's just a matter of the city notifying them that they had signed a piece of paper saying if they chose to move after 6 months, they would have to leave. So it would just be an action that would occur that they knew about ahead of time.
Council would have to authorize the mayor to make that action in their rules.
Why, if the council already passed that in their rules?
They have not passed anything like that yet.
No, I mean afterwards.
Because it's a council action to appoint or remove someone from a committee. They would have to say this is not a council action to remove someone.
Essentially, the council has to delegate their authority to do so. Staff does not have the authority to supersede a council action. And so the council specifically has to delegate that staff or administration can carry out that action. Or else what Josh is saying is we appoint them by resolution, these committee members. And so therefore it takes that level of action to remove someone currently.
I got it. It's just, it's more embarrassing for the person. And then it's just more time for the council when they already made the rule.
Right. I would think we could delegate that. What do you
the city administrator should have the ability to just say it's part of it's. I mean, we don't, all of our other rules aren't done that way. And they're appointed.
Yeah, the council, for instance, they delegate the authority for design review to the design review board, or review of applications to the hearing examiner. I totally agree with you. There's been 2 instances since I've been at the city where members were in the process of being considered for removal from a board or commission, but it is so embarrassing for the individual, for staff to have to put together a resolution saying this is why this person needs to be kicked off.
Got it.
Whereas if it were in the rules, as Josh was saying, we could do that without having to go to your public meeting and kick someone off.
Yes, much better.
I agree. Let's delegate that. It's in the rules. We've decided the rules.
Yeah.
The planning commission in particular requires an advertised public hearing to remove someone.
Well, then maybe this is a question we asked Daniel, because our goal is not to embarrass people, but if they've already signed on knowing that if they move out and we're going to give them 6 months, it should just be a house cleaning chore.
Yeah, or in the future, if someone does break the code in some way, we can handle that without having to go to council.
Yes.
So is that a question we're going to figure out how to have Daniel write that? Or we just, you got it, Josh?
There's a number of things we need to update in council rules in the near future. So that can go on the list of things to get in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to do the in good standing thing and the delegation.
Yep.
Okay.
I think there's a number of things that are inconsistent throughout these chapters on our boards that should probably just be taken out of the code completely and put into council rules.
And so the council rules have as much authority as the code?
Wherever they're not superseded by the code, they would.
Okay.
The code would supersede, but the council rules will work wherever the code is not overruling them.
Okay. Why would you put something in council rules and not have it in the code?
Because council rules is a little more flexible and easier to change.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You don't have to update 8 different chapters of the code when you want to change one.
Oh, yeah, let's not do that. That's a lot of work. It sounds like time.
One more change in this ordinance that I'm just looking at now is the last time we updated this, there was some date references to terms beginning on or after August 27th, 2019. Those are all obsolete now. So when I put forward the ordinance, I'm going to take those out. we don't need to reference that grandfather terms from before then are still grandfathered because they will all have expired at this point.
Okay.
So you'll see some more strikeout for that.
Cool.
Great.
All right, does that wrap it?
So then I guess as the next steps in the process, we're going to send some of these questions to Daniel, and then once we get those answers, are we having another meeting?
I think Josh has the intent and could probably draft the language with Daniel's input. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think that's something I can work on. Probably not for the next meeting, but sometime in the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Okay. Then is there anything else? We have a
I move to
motion.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. See you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.